I see the born of no return. Sister, hey now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday again, November 18th, 2014. My condolences to all the folks up in Buffalo. Last I heard, there was like 51 inches of snow on the ground, and they're talking about more than 6 feet. Well, you know, I guess the folks in Buffalo are used to it. I hope so. I would hate to think this came as a big surprise, but it appears that there's something called a lake effect. Now, you know, being a Southern boy, you know, it doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but you know, I guess, you know, it's kind of normal to the folks that live up in that part of the country. But yeah, Buffalo, New York, right now, as we're speaking, has more than 51 inches of snow on the ground. And it hadn't stopped yet. They can't even get the snow plows through it. So, you know, we may not hear anymore from Buffalo, New York until the spring thaw. But, yeah, it's an interesting little adjunct in the news. You know, it is a little early in the season. Now, Buffalo, New York, I mean, they're used to big snows. They're used to cold winters. I mean, that part of the country, you know, they just brace for it. Yeah, they take it in stride. It's just, you know, normal. But they're not used to seeing this kind of weather until, you know, December, maybe January. 'Tis a little early in the season, you know, seeing as how it's not even officially winter yet, for them to have so much weather. Well, moving right along. You know, by the way, it's not just Buffalo, New York. I understand that a large portion of the country is being impacted with unseasonably cold weather right now. There's, you know, one of these, what they keep calling a polar vortex or, you know, whatever, has apparently impacted about half of the lower 48 states, driving temperatures down below freezing for about half the people in, you know, last estimate I heard, 225 million people here in the United States are going to experience below freezing weather over the near term. So, you know, bundle up. It's cold out there. You know, there's differences of opinion on why the British colonies of the Americas struck out in a revolution against their fatherland or motherland or whatever you want to refer to it, and basically kicked the Brits out, you know, back in 1776. Some said it had something to do with this Stamp Act. You know, the Brits wanted to impose yet another tax on the colonies, and the colonies dug in their heels and said, hell no. There was this thing about, you know, taxation without representation. We can't send representation to Parliament to vote on the taxes that you're going to impose upon us. Therefore, by definition, those taxes are unreasonable, unfair, and, you know, we ain't going to pay them. And there was this thing called the Tea Party, where they, you know, the tea that was supposed to be taxed got tossed overboard. You know the stories, okay. And then, of course, Benjamin Franklin came out in his memoirs and said, we'd have probably put up with some of the abusive taxes and some of the other nonsense. But when they started messing around with our colonial money and sent our economy into a depression, that was the last straw. Well, occasionally it's nice to look back with a historical perspective. 2020 hindsight, so let's take a quick look here. Back in the day, back in 1776, when the colonies decided to eject the Brits and go their own way, we were taxed on some imports. We were taxed on paper. We were taxed on teas. Mostly imported, what most would consider luxury goods. None of the necessities of life were taxed. And the average person in the colonies of America, which would later become these United States, the average tax burden was about 1 to 2.5%. The big landowners, the well-to-do, were expected to chip in about 2.5% of their revenue in the form of taxes. Now, today, in the United States of the Republic, you got income taxes, you got outgo taxes, you got sideways taxes, you got taxes coming at you from every direction. Some of them are referred to as fees, but, if they are fees for government services that you kind of thought the government was supposed to be providing you, it's yet another tax. And now on top of all the rest, they've laid this new layer of bureaucracy called Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, however you wish to refer to it. Right now, average Joe Blow in America is paying somewhere between 30 and 40% of his income in various taxes and fees. And that does not include the burden associated with Obamacare. That for you to consider. And as with all things, make up your own damn mind. Are we really better off today than we were under King George? Perhaps we could say sorry and ask him back. Just something to consider. Well, there was a brutal attack in Jerusalem, and 4 Jewish worshippers, a fellow by the name of Twersky, 59 years old, Kopinski, 43 years old, Levine, 55 years old, and Goldberg, 68 years old, were killed. Very unfortunate incident. It appears that this was in some way Palestinian payback for some atrocities that Israelis have recently committed against Palestinians. The 2 attackers, apparently cousins, were members of a Palestinian group. Let's see here. I'll remember what the name of they're a group that's obviously in favor of freeing Palestine. Apparently, the cousins had 1 gun and meat cleavers as weapons. Most of the wounds were pretty grisly, hack-em-up type wounds. Very unfortunate incident. Now, as horrendous as something like this might be, And you got to figure, okay, these guys were rabbis. They were worshiping at their synagogue. In theory, they weren't, minding their own business, not bothering anybody. And along comes a couple of clowns with a handgun and some meat cleavers and does them in. That's a pretty heinous crime. And it should indeed be reported as a heinous crime. But in the back of your mind, I would like you to remember how many heinous crimes are committed by Israelis against Palestinians that you never hear about. I mean, there was a Palestinian bus driver just last week who was minding his own business, driving his bus, and got dragged out of his bus by some Israeli colonizers, I guess. They're colonizing Palestinian territories. Objected to the fact that this Palestinian would drive his Palestinian bus through turf that they considered theirs. Basically lynched the guy. Now, that was not reported on mainstream media. Much of the alternative media picked up on it and reported it as a newsworthy event. And this type of thing happens all the time to Palestinians in the West Bank and in the areas of Gaza that that Israeli colonists seem to think they should have exclusive rights to. So, again, as grisly as this crime was, and, nobody wants to see people praying, all of a sudden be attacked like this. We do have to question coverage of events. Is the coverage that we're provided fair and balanced, or is it one-sided? Is the fact that 4 rabbis in their 50s and 60s were slain, is that in some way more hideous than the fact that Israel dropped bombs on kindergartens in Gaza and got a pass? Matter of fact, Israelis were out there having a party, drinking, toasting as the bombs were going off in Gaza. But somehow the fact that Palestinians are celebrating the death of these 4 rabbis, somehow that's more cold and more grisly and more brutal than seeing a bunch of Israelis who dragged their sofas out to the hilltop, brought some champagne and some snacks, and watched the bombing of Gaza. That's just perfectly normal. I mean, everybody's that. It's like, watching TV in the evening. Yeah. I don't want to give these Palestinians any excuse. What they did was wrong. But you know what? Israel does a lot of wrong things too. What I really want you to consider is, are you being led down a path? Are you being programmed by the media to somehow count a Jewish life as more valuable than that of a Palestinian? On that one, please consider. And as always, make up your own damn mind. Hit the button. There we go. Big news here in the United States. They're about to release the verdict in Ferguson, Missouri. Yeah. To bring up speed, there was this fellow named Wilson, a cop, apparently got into a bit of a tussle with a young black kid named Brown. Some reports indicate that Brown reached into the cop's cruiser and attempted to grab his firearm. Others say the cop pulled up to Brown, gave him a bunch of grief, to which Brown basically said, F you. And apparently the cop opened his door and backed up into Brown, trapping Brown in the door of the car. A tussle ensued where Brown eventually escaped. Whatever. There are two sides to this story. And yes, I agree. This kid, Brown, was no angel. Okay? The question is, did he do something that required summary execution? Which is apparently what happened. The tussle did indeed end in violence, with Wilson shooting Brown at least half a dozen times, twice in the head. Brown is dead. There is a grand jury deciding right now whether Wilson should be charged with some form of homicide, perhaps even, manslaughter. At least, should he be charged with something in this? Or were his actions justified under the law? It's tough to tell. 9 jurors must agree there is probable cause in order to charge Wilson. They're not being sequestered, and their decision is likely to spark violence, perhaps across the United States, or so says our government. Now, remember some time ago, we had that Trayvon Martin killing, similar incident. Young black kid was apparently challenged by, a wannabe cop. They got into a little bit of a struggle. The wannabe cop was apparently packing heat and feeling like he was going to get his butt whooped. He apparently shot this kid, Trayvon Martin, killed him dead. Okay, very, very, kind of a similar set of circumstances. Everybody said at that time, oh, this is going to be race riots. If we don't hang this shooter, the black people are going to go crazy. Look, first of all, the black people out there, some of my racist friends are going to, puke on this, but, the black people are not stupid. And, there are outside agitators that came in during the protest last time around and, caused a lot of trouble, did some looting, did some burning. It was not a pleasant experience. Some would say that the police at that time really overreacted, and it was the overreaction of the police that instigated a lot of the problems during the earlier protests over this Brown-Wilson incident. But, everybody's just, hyping the living daylights out of this, talking about how this is going to be the big one. It's going to be race war. It's going to be, white people are going to have targets painted on their backs, They're going to go after Anheuser-Busch. They're going to go after this. They're going to go after that. It's going to be, violence in the streets. So much so that the governor, in advance of any announcement of an indictment, keep in mind, the grand jury has not even published their verdict yet. They have not yet determined whether this guy Wilson is going to be charged with a crime. But, everybody's saying, if they don't charge this guy Wilson, there's going to be blood in the streets. It's going to be horrible. Well, they've already declared a state of emergency. This is the picture I've got up over my shoulder for those watching the video feed on this is a convoy of National Guard vehicles being pulled into the area. And strangely enough, there seems to be a Homeland security drill going on only 25 miles away with a whole bunch of strange Homeland security vehicles parked, a couple of hundred Homeland security vehicles parked at underground garage associated with the motel they're staying at. The guy who posted some of these pictures to Facebook lost his job over it. You're not supposed to be telling anybody that Homeland Security is here. So all the pieces are in place for this Ferguson thing. If it doesn't blow up into a race war, there is enough in the way of government assets on the ground to instigate something. And, of course, you got to be concerned with the agent provocateurs that have been known to appear when such incidents go down. So, if it does not blow up into the hoped-for riot, there is a very high probability that somebody will come along and make sure it does. All right, 27:45. There's the music. I thought I had timed that one just right. Now I'm hearing the music. I'm going to have to step out for a few minutes while the studio sells some products to keep those lights burning. I'll be back right after these important announcements with some more barking at the moon. All right, and we're back from that blatantly commercial interruption to the evening's events. This article I'm reading from right now, this is from the daily Sheeple.com. Sometimes some interesting take on the news over there. This little bit here, considering that Missouri Governor Jay Nixon has preemptively declared a 30-day state of emergency for the entire state, in addition to activating the National Guard, before the grand jury decision has even been read, it's a little hard to buy the official line that this massing of DHS agents right outside the potential riot zone is just for the most coincidentally timed training. Yeah, the FBI has also issued a bulletin declaring that the Ferguson decision will likely lead to violence by extremist protesters exploiting the situation, causing some to, quote, threaten and even attack police officers or federal agents. On top of that, police have stocked up on less lethal ammunition in the last few months, including Hornet's Nest CS sting grenades. This is a CS gas grenade that's fired out of a shotgun. Okay, it's a 12-gauge shotgun round that shoots about a dozen rubber bullets, about the size of a double-aught buck type thing, and they're packed in CS powder. So this thing ejects about half a dozen 30 caliber projectiles, along with some CS gas. It's counted as less than lethal, but I can tell you what, man, I sure as hell would want to be on the receiving end of that thing. That's a pretty nasty weapon. And they've got the usual assortment of, tear gas, plastic handcuffs, and so on and so forth. And it seems like the media, our old dinosaur media, is running in lockstep with this thing, just trying to hype this situation, get people all up and excited. Okay, now here's the bottom line. Okay, this cop Wilson, they are going to cut him loose, They're not going to find him guilty of anything. They're not going to even charge him with a crime. And why, you say? Why, you say? I mean, for crying out loud, he shot the kid in the back 3 or 4 times, and then as he turned around, shot him a couple times in the face. I mean, how could that not be some form of homicide, at least manslaughter? Well, see, they don't want to set a precedent. They really don't want to set a precedent. The cops have been given a license to kill. Remember the old James Bond? 007, they got a license to kill. Well, you ain't supposed to say nothing to a cop except, yes, sir. You are supposed to lick their boots. You're supposed to kiss them on the cheek. If they ask for it, you're supposed... Well, no, we won't even go down that path. But, they can't be setting no precedent. The cops cannot be adjudged guilty for doing the job they were hired to do, which is to keep you peasants in your place. And for those of you who think this is a black-white issue, I'm not even going to go down the list of white people that have been killed by steroid-popping cops who are just flat out of their minds. It's not just black people who are targets. You, Mr. Middle Class, white American, you got a target on your back. Moving right along here. Ukraine, we had kind of hoped that things were going to settle down in Ukraine. We really did. It was looking like those boys might just, kind of kiss and make up. They're supposedly called a ceasefire, although it seems that the Kiev interests, the interests in the western portion of Ukraine, the fellows who are being backed by U.S. and EU interests, they have continued occasionally to just shell. I mean, they shelled a schoolyard not too long ago, killed a teacher and a couple of kids. Every once in a while they just seem to get a wild hair and start, lobbing shells into the part of Ukraine that wishes to separate from the rest. Well, the fellow in the picture over my shoulder here is comparing the actions of Ukraine to the actions of Serbia against Austro-Hungary, the Hungarian Empire. It's basically the last remnants of what used to be referred to as the Holy Roman Empire back during the Middle Ages. But the Austro-Hungarian Empire had, nominal sway over Serbia, and Serbia basically, was pushing to separate. And some say that it was the provocations of the Serbians that led the world into the First World War. There are some parallels. He also condemned events in Warsaw, where thousands of radical nationalists clashed with police on the Polish National Day in an attempt to attack the Russian embassy. Bottom line is, there are interests within the United States, within the European Union, that have run out of other ideas to hold it all together. And they're looking for somebody to blame. See, the economy is circling the drain, okay? The flusher's already been pulled, and the economy is circling the drain. And they've tried everything they can think of. They've printed money out to wazoo, and, that didn't seem to work. They just, they have run out of games to play. Now, some say they can keep this economy struggling along for another 3, 4, 5, 10, maybe even 15, 20 years. Who knows? And just keep those presses running, keep printing up that money. But they need a fallback plan. And when the poo-poo hits the air oscillator, they really, really, really do not want folks to come back and blame them. Okay? They got to have a scapegoat. They got to be able to blame it on something. Let's blame it on global warming. No, we tried that. Let's blame it on Fukushima. No, we tried that. I got it. It's always worked before. Let's start a war. In the past, when these financial criminals have found themselves up against the wall, couldn't think of any other way to solve their immediate problem, they have, as a last resort, taken the world into war. They've done it twice. And some say they're looking to do it again. And this Ukraine issue could just be the fuse that lights off the next big one. Who are these guys? They are the central bankers, the big bankers of the world. They are the enemy of us all. I'm hearing that music. It's playing. I'm going to have to slip out of here for a short recess while they sell some more goods. I'll be back in just a moment to do my final segment of Barking at the Moon. All righty, and we're back from that last break of the evening, which means I've got about 12 minutes to try and finish up this pile of doo-doo sitting in front of me. Remember back when this Ukraine mess first started? You know, there was an elected government in Ukraine. What can only be described as a bunch of Nazis were raising hell in the streets, and apparently somehow brought the government of Ukraine down. Now, some say that the only way something like that could have happened is if word came down from Putin in Russia for the military and police of Ukraine to stand down. So there are those out there who argue that the coup d'etat that put a Western government with a Western-style central banking authority in place in Kiev, the only way that could have happened is with Putin's complicity and approval. I've heard that argument, and if you start looking at it and thinking about it, because Ukraine had always been very tightly aligned with Russia, going back to the Cold War era. The Crimea, this area that Russia, managed to snag just as Ukraine was falling apart. Crimea was originally Russian territory, and it was ceded to Ukraine by Nikita Khrushchev during my lifetime. And there were, some deals made, that Russia would be able to maintain bases there, and they made a formal agreement on it, and they were such close buddies that Nikita Khrushchev had no problem at all with ceding that territory to Ukrainian authority on the assumption that Russia would be able to use it anytime they needed it for whatever they wanted to, they were kissing cousins, they were buds, okay? So, how all of a sudden from out of nowhere does Russian influence on Ukraine diminish to the point where a Western-influenced, a U.S., EU-influenced government could toss out an in-power Russian-influenced government? How could that come down? Well, if you're real conspiratorial in mind, this guy Putin, he's quite the chess player. We got a president that can barely play Chinese checkers, and this guy in Russia, he's a freaking chess master, okay? This could all be, a Russian staged plot to draw the West into a situation that will eventually embarrass them. But one thing that did come out today that is notable is that apparently while the Ukrainians were not watching, somebody snatched all their gold. Now, I remember a report coming out, as this thing in Ukraine was starting to go down, about, some unmarked, unscheduled transport planes coming in and, 40 big heavy cases that it took 4 guys to load into this plane. They had 40 of these cases, loaded up in this airplane and took it off, and everybody speculated. Somebody just made off with all Ukraine's gold. Well, the Ukrainians admitted today that apparently only 1% of their total gold reserves remain in their bank vaults. So, yes, apparently those early rumors, although it was all poo-pooed by the mainstream media, nobody could get in there and steal Ukraine's gold. Apparently somebody got in there and stole Ukraine's gold. Now, whether it was, the Federal Reserve and the Rothschilds that did it, or whether that snake Putin got in there and got their gold, we may not know anytime soon. We may not know within our lifetime. But it is just another interesting note. Now, I'm running out of time, and I do have a few more articles here, but the climatologist who's reporting on how we may be coming into a mini ice age, not a period of global warming. Yeah, I really wanted to get onto that. And there is this interesting story about this new Toyota that they're getting ready to release. It's going to cost about $60,000 apparently, but it's a hydrogen fuel cell automobile. They're actually going to release at least a small number of these. They're talking 400 or 500 units. But they're actually going to produce and release for sale at least a small quantity of hydrogen fuel cell Toyotas. Now, to be honest with you, looking at the picture of this car, Japanese stylists need to go back to school, okay? I mean, sorry, Toyota, the car is ugly. But from a technological standpoint, this could be pretty cool. The big problem with a hydrogen fuel cell automobile right now is that there's no infrastructure to support it. Now, it's eminently practical. It's got more range than a standard gasoline-powered car, so, it does not have that deficiency of some of the modern electric cars that are out there. And you can refuel the thing in about 5-10 minutes, which is a significant advantage over your typical electric car. And, of course, the only thing this thing emits as far as pollution is water vapor. Well, generating the hydrogen does require some fossil fuels. I almost hate that word. There is the fuel. But anyway, but the problem so far is that there's no place you can pull in and get hydrogen. So it's going to be somewhat difficult to keep the thing fueled. But I'm impressed that such a car is being released by a major manufacturer. Now, I've got to play a couple of quick videos for you because, frankly, I found these amusing. I found them absolutely hilarious. And, I want to leave you with a little bit of a laugh tonight. Last week, we did a story on this guy, Gruber, who was apparently one of the architects of Obamacare, who called you stupid and basically told us how they had to lie you into accepting Obamacare. And oh yes, I just love Obamacare. Thank you, Obama, for that free health care. But I got to play you a couple of cute videos. This first one is called All of Gruber Gate in 2 minutes. So, get your adult beverage ready and have a giggle. I hope you'll like this. Be patient with me for just a moment. It might take me a moment to get the thing running. Never mind. wonder if this other one's going to run. Okay, something wrong with my player. Doggone it anyway. You know, it was a couple of cute bits. You know, I thought you know, for some reason my player is refusing to play those two videos. Almost like a smart scarecrow show, isn't it, Zero? You know, best laid plans. There are some cute videos on YouTube. Because I was unable to play them for you, what I'll tell you is that there is a video out there called All of Gruber in 2 minutes. All of Gruber in 2 minutes. If you do a search on YouTube for that YouTube video, it should be pretty easy to find. And if that doesn't give you a giggle, nothing will. Now, there's another one that's kind of a satirical piece. It's called Don't Tell 'Em. Don't Tell 'Em. Look that one up on YouTube as well. For some reason, my player is being contrary tonight and refuses to play these out, or I would go ahead and play them for you because they really are quite amusing. And in this time of choosing your Obamacare plan, when is the deadline? I think you have to choose your Obamacare plan by January or something. And next year it's supposed to jump up about 15% in premium. So, you know, as soon as you get used to the initial ouch, they jack you up for a little bit more. Gotta love it. This is a story that, you know, I kind of wanted to end on this funny. You know, we're coming up about, 3 minutes before they're going to drag me out of here. And I wanted to wind up tonight's presentation with these two little gag videos that I figured I'd, let you out of here with a laugh. But instead, we're going to have to get into something pretty nasty. Now, this is from IntelliHub, and I got to tell you, sometimes IntelliHub is good, sometimes they're but it is something you're going to have to consider. This is an article that they published just today, and it appears that this was sourced from Mike Adams over at Natural News. Now, again, Mike Adams over at Natural News. Some of his stuff is pretty good. Some of his stuff, I think, is kind of hyperventilating and sensationalized. But this is how this article goes. In the modern era, uber left-wing academics who view environmentalism as a religion and take on blind faith that the world is being destroyed by the infestation of human beings have long considered and discussed how best to achieve population control and even population reduction. Most have been careful not to actually state what it is that they would really like to see, the mass murder of billions of people, so they could save the planet through avoidance of destruction by humans. But even a reasonably astute observer can see through the veneer. Yeah, okay, so you can see this guy's got a point of view, all right? One recent academic paper serves as a perfect example of this, hiding our zest for depopulation by any means. Corey J.A. Bradshaw and Barry W. Brook, both of the Environmental Institute and School of Earth and Environmental Sciences at the University of Adelaide in Adelaide, Australia, note that even the loss of, get this now, 2 billion people over the course of 5 years still would not be enough of a depopulation effort to do the Earth much good. What these guys are arguing for is they're arguing for an absolutely catastrophic depopulation of this little dirt ball, third dirt ball from the sun. They would like to see many billions, maybe as many as 6 or 7 billion people eliminated from the planet. Now, there's one for you to think about. And as always, make up your own mind. Hey, I'm Gary Hendershot, and I'm finished barking at the moon for this week. See you again next Tuesday. You all have a good week now. Good night. Well, of course, you're supposed to have a good night. You're supposed to have a good week. thinking about the billions of bodies you're going to have to step over. These guys are crazy. I mean, they're absolutely crazy. They, and the problem is, these are the people who are currently in control. Okay, that's they have the desire, and they apparently have the ability to depopulate planet Earth. What they're looking for is they're looking for a way that doesn't have any blowback, 'cause the problem is, if you throw a big war, and the elite go to their little underground bunkers and say, oh, yeah, y'all just fight it out. We'll come out in 100 years and see what's left. There's always the possibility that, their bunkers might get blowed up. Who knows? And of course, they release some kind of pandemic disease. How do they make sure that they don't get it? They don't want them and theirs getting it. Because, those who are currently in control, who consider you to be nothing more than a source of revenue and a useless eater, they would like to see you gone so that they can have a pristine earth to frolic naked in without all you peasants getting in the way. But, they got to figure out a way to do it so it's nice and neat and clean, and so that them and their children don't get wiped out too. Sick sons of bitches. Let's see. This one here I didn't get to during the course of the presentation, and it's kind of a sad note. I got this out of patriotrising.com. Now, it's here again. This guy is a little right of Genghis Khan, okay, and he's got his point of view, but I think this is one that most of you might share. Definitely something to consider. This just came out yesterday. A handout given to second grade children at a school in Fairfield, Connecticut, states that the government gives us rights. A disturbing example of how kids are being miseducated about their constitutional freedoms in America. Being a good citizen, the handout tells children that rights are special privileges the government gives you, and that the government gives us rights. According to the paper's warped logic, because the government gives us rights, we have a duty to be good citizens. Now, this is not quite how I was taught in civics, back in high school. But this is grade school level. I don't know. Maybe they need to simplify it for the poor little mushheads in grade school. Perhaps only a high schooler can understand that rights are not privileges. They are indeed rights based on the fact that you were born. The moment you were born, you had God-given rights. If you don't believe in God, you had rights given you by the fact that you're here and you're alive. Whatever. Those rights are unalienable. You cannot put a lien on them. You cannot give them up. Even if you were to stand on a soapbox and say, I abrogate all my rights and I wish to become a slave to the government, you cannot, under the Constitution of the United States, give up your rights, nor can they be taken for you without just cause. For example, if you are a criminal, if you just wantonly go out and murder, rape, pillage, and plunder, okay, society does have a right above yours to remove you from society so that you can't do harm to society in general. But frankly, the way the Constitution was written, unless there was a victim, the state has no standing and cannot abridge your rights in any way. And yet our children are being taught that those rights are privileges granted them by the government, and as privileges they can be withdrawn anytime the government sees such a need. Isn't that precious? That's what your kids are being taught in school today. Yeah, you ain't in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. That's it. That was all my, I was going to get into this, beheading stuff. I mean, this U.S., U.S. guy was beheaded by ISIL, or whatever you want to call him. Here again, it's another really sad one. Although I got to tell you, there are reports coming out of back channels that, yes, while this fellow was indeed grabbed by ISIS and was being held as a hostage, I got the impression that, they're trying to make some money selling him back. He may indeed have been killed by a U.S. airstrike, and ISIS said, well, we got to, do the best we can with what we got. So they sliced his head off and paraded it around. It doesn't matter. It's a sad situation. This young man apparently had a good heart, although he was in the military. He was a U.S. Ranger, and apparently got an honorable discharge and decided to go back to the area doing humanitarian work. And he was apparently a good fella. I found no indication that he was a CIA provocateur or anything like that, as so many of them are. This guy may indeed have been a real, honest-to-God, nice guy who went over there trying to do good work and found himself in the middle of a shitstorm. It's a shame. Whether he was beheaded by ISIS or killed in a U.S. drone assault, doesn't matter. Young man's dead, and frankly, he's the type we wish we had more of, not less. Was going to get into that a little bit, but I just flat ran out of time. But that is the last of my planned presentation. So at this point, I turn it over to the audience and ask you, as always, all right, guys, what big item in the news did I totally ignore that I should have covered? Let's hear from you. Checking the chat room now. Wow, I just had a Matrix deja vu moment. I'm not sure what that's all about, but cat walked by already. Equal rights amendment was unnecessary. Okay, if you say so. The video looped. Speaking of videos, I have a rather complex setup here for those for the video playouts. I'm going to try one more time to play out those cute videos, because if I don't have to play them for rents, I can play them on my local machine, and it might actually work. Let me see here. All right, this is the don't tell 'em bit. Now this is a satirical video that was apparently put together by an outfit called Reason TV. Hey, they're not the Onion. Their production values are not quite as good as the Onion, but I thought it was a cute bit. So let's see if I can get this thing to play here. Here we go. And, of course, as usual, I had some technical difficulties getting them to play, but I hope you got a little bit of a giggle out of those. And, yes, I did post the links to Gruber Gate in 2 minutes, which is the one you just saw, that last bit that I put up. And Don't Tell 'Em, which was the first little ditty that I put out there. Are you starting to feel like an Obamacare sucker yet? There's nothing new in what this guy Gruber said. A lot of us were saying this back before Obamacare was passed. And, anybody can, oh boy, free healthcare, I'm going to get free healthcare. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. I just love Obamacare. All right. Hey, here's a good comment from D.C. Trey Bill. An economist is someone who can tell you tomorrow why what he said yesterday did not happen today. That's a very good definition. I like that. Gruber, of course, is an MIT economist. One of the things that's this year, the penalty is not as much as the premium. This year, I'm going to pay a penalty. Now, I understand that next year the penalty goes up to something approaching the cost of a bare minimum Obamacare policy. The problem for me, now I don't know about you, okay, now I have very simple requirements when it comes to health care. Okay, I self-insure for the first $5,000. So if I get a little nick or ding, I pay for it out of pocket. If I somehow have a major injury or come up with a major disease or something of that nature, I would like to have some reasonable health care. Typically, I don't trust medical doctors. I do not wish to be prescribed medicine to hide symptoms. That to me, that's like a witch doctor shaking his rattles and doing his dance. You're not really helping my affliction. You're just hiding the symptoms. However, our medical system here in the United States has gotten very, very good when it comes to trauma medicine. So, if you're in an automobile accident or, you're hanging Christmas lights and you fall off the roof, they are very capable of stitching you back together. They do a pretty darn good job of that. So I have a certain amount of respect for U.S. medicine when it comes to trauma treatment. And I would like to have coverage just in case I have an accident or I'm injured in some way. If I get some kind of infection, I trust their antibiotics. But I'm not real, if I go in with acid reflux disease and they want to prescribe me an antacid, well, I can take Tums, that's fine. If you've got some way of treating it so it goes away, that's one thing. But the idea of being hooked on your medicine for the rest of my life to just hide a symptom, that to me does not seem like anything I want to be involved with. And that's basically the best our current health care system has to offer. I don't want to buy that. I don't want to pay for it. I have no need for that. But under Obamacare, you got to pay for this, cradle to grave scenario where even an old geezer like me has to have maternity coverage. What the hell do I need with maternity coverage? I had my children 40 years ago. I'm over and done with that nonsense. Okay? So, tell me I got to have maternity coverage? You give me a break. Yeah, I'll probably take a copyright hit for showing you guys those videos. who on his deathbed declared to all doctors present, "Gentlemen, please stand back. Allow me to die of natural causes." Yes, I'm not sure who. That sounds like something that Mark Twain would have said. You know, that you know, he's such an ornery cuss. That's old Samuel Clemens. That sounds like something he would say on his way out. "Doctor, get away from me. Let me die of natural causes. I don't need you speeding it up any." Thursday nights. No. I've been moved. I'm here on Tuesday nights, starting at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. That is the show time, and I'm looking for any comments from the audience on items in the news that I might have missed in tonight's presentation that you thought was important enough that I should have covered it. What do you think? Did I miss anything major? I'm not seeing any. Just before airtime tonight. Apparently, the Congress was in a late session. Just before showtime, it appears that the Keystone Pipeline was once again, for the 10th time now, voted down. So the environmentalists, you know, waving, "Oh, it's going to kill the caribou," in Louisiana. "It's going to kill the alligators." You know, the environmentalists apparently got the Keystone Pipeline project shut down. I have mixed emotions about this Keystone Pipeline. You know, I'm not real thrilled with the idea of, you know, Canadian oil being pipelined through the United States into Mexico so that the Chinese can load it up on ships and take it back to China for a lower fee than if they had to pick it up in Canada or maybe on the west coast of the United States. If the pipeline went from Canada to, say, San Diego, and they had to pay port fees in San Diego to load up that oil and cart it off to China, I could be a little bit more behind. But this Keystone Pipeline, we get to pay for the pipeline. Okay, it runs from Canada to Mexico, to a port in Mexico. Okay, we don't get none of the oil. Okay, so we take all the expense, we take all the liability. If that thing springs a leak, it's going to contaminate our turf. And who benefits from the Keystone Pipeline? Well, you know, Canada, because, you know, they really, really, really want to sell their oil to China. And, of course, China benefits because they get to pick it up in Mexico, where the port fees are like next to nothing compared to, say, San Diego or San Francisco. So, you know, in that respect alone, you know, I object to this Keystone Pipeline. The only benefit to the United States is that some of the illegal immigrants that have poured over the border will be able to get jobs building the pipeline for at least a short period of time. If you really think they're going to pay a U.S. citizen a fair wage to build that pipeline when they got all these illegals here that they can, you know, buy for cheap, guess again. The only argument in favor of this Keystone Pipeline is that it's going to employ Americans. I have a sneaking suspicion there will be precious few Americans working on that pipeline. They'll probably bring over a bunch of coolies from China. I'm going to do a special Smart Scarecrow presentation for Russ Grease when the pulse motor build-off is completed. We're going to fire up the old Smart Scarecrow show for one evening, and we're going to give the winners their 15 minutes of fame with a special Smart Scarecrow show. That sounds like a fun event, and that is certainly worthy of doing a special presentation. I know guys work real hard on those pulse motors. You know, and are these guys going to save the planet with their pulse motors? Hell no. But you know what? We're going to see some very creative designs. We're going to see some interesting construction techniques, and it's always been a really fun project. So I'm happy to be involved with that. Yeah, Mexico can send every illegal over with a barrel of oil. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I'll tell you, if that, for our children's sake, yeah. Anytime a politician says for the children, grab hold of your wallet because they're getting ready to pick your pocket. All right, guys, it's getting late, and I still got to package this thing up for YouTube and get out of here. So, one last time, is there anything critical that we needed to discuss tonight that I neglected? Let's post it up in the next moment or so, or forever hold your peace, or at least until next week. All right, Zero, I think you called it. Folks, really do appreciate you spending your Tuesday evening listening to me act like an idiot and bark at the moon as if anybody out there was really listening or anybody really gave a damn. But you betcha. Be back next Tuesday, and we'll just do it all over again. Good night, all.
Calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn